Hello and welcome back to the IVF Daddies podcast. Today, another of my amazing friends has offered to be on the podcast because I didn't really realize this at the time when we first met, but she has been a surrogate. And I want to really delve into that. But before we do that, Carey, hello, thank you, and welcome.
Hey, so good to see you.
I know, it's amazing. It's like the last time we met in London seems like an eternity ago, right?
Forever ago.
Here we are, the joy of the internet. So anyway, there are lots of parallels, really. You're in my life. You found your calling through having your family. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. My story begins, I guess, 14 years ago, my ex-wife and I, we were together 18 years. And we decided about 8 years into our relationship that we wanted to have a baby. And I wanted to carry, and my ex-wife, did not. So that was an easy decision there. We went about the route of sperm donation, anonymous sperm donation, to have our daughter. And that was amazing. It worked on the second try. And we have our gorgeous, beautiful, almost 13-year-old daughter now from that. And through that experience, I had an easy pregnancy, and I was just so overwhelmed with gratitude, this sense of gratitude that a stranger had done something that allowed me to become a parent, a sperm donor. And I thought, I want to give back in some way, but I don't want to be like genetically related to the child, but I want to give back in that big of a way. So that's how I found surrogacy, gestational surrogacy. And became
Which is amazing. And again, so the parallels, if anybody has been listening to the podcast, is we both have ex-spouses, we both have children through half donation, and we're both amazing human beings.
Yeah, and fabulous.
Yes. Yeah. Anyway, so you obviously had your daughter and then thought, I can do this. I can be a surrogate.
Yeah.
So I have a huge number of questions about that, because one of the things that I've spoken about multiple times on different podcasts is the fact that my best friend offered her eggs, and she asked me if I would be a sperm donor, and I said no, because that genetic link to somebody that wasn't going to be my child, for me, I still struggle with that. I have embryos sitting in the freezer. I can't donate them. There's these different things. What drove you, apart from that altruistic thing, to go, I can do this?
Yeah. So I didn't have my daughter until I was pregnant at 34 and delivered her at 35 years old. And I knew that the clock was ticking for me to have more kids if we wanted to have more kids, and we didn't. My wife was 8 years older than me, is still ex-wife, 8 years older than me. And she was like, I'm one and done. And I was like, yeah, I'm one and done as well. However, I loved being pregnant. Loved it. It was easy. I didn't have morning sickness, nothing.
But what do you love about being pregnant?
I know. It's hard to describe.
It's like women
right?
say, like the way that I look at it is like you have a baby growing in you. It's taking all your nutrients. It's like taking everything. It's like I'm like, what do you mean by I love being pregnant?
The only thing I can associate it with is, as a parent, how hard it is to be a parent. Like, how excruciating some of the moments of parenthood are, emotionally, physically, mentally, but it's like the most intense love ever, right? It's the same thing for people who enjoy pregnancy. It can be miserable, it can be uncomfortable, but it is like the most beautiful feeling of giving life. And that's the only thing I can tie it to, is it's the most horrible and most wonderful thing all wrapped in one.
No, it's horrible, but it's amazing.
But it's amazing. Yep. I don't know. I think most pregnant people would probably tell you the same thing if they enjoyed their pregnancies.
So you loved being pregnant with your daughter, and you thought, I can do this for someone else.
Yes. And I thought, my family's for sure done. I don't want more kids of my own, but there was this amazing gift given to me. I'd be pregnant again for someone else with their genetic biological child. And that could be like the perfect win for me, getting to experience pregnancy one more time before my clock is officially ticked. And then also be able to be a part of this amazing gift coming full circle.
And it really is an amazing gift. But I'm still, so obviously you've been pregnant, we get that. So tell me more about, you've said no genetic link to the baby you're just carrying. So tell me a little bit more about that.
Sure. So gestational surrogacy obviously is, or maybe not obviously to some that are listening, is when the surrogate, the person carrying the pregnancy, is just carrying the embryo that has been created in a fertility clinic by a parent or parents. So that embryo could be created in a multitude of ways. In my particular situation, I carried for two moms, a lesbian couple. They created their embryo with the eggs of one mom and the sperm donor's sperm. So that embryo was genetically related to one of the moms, and then that embryo was transferred into my uterus, and I just gestated, gestational carrier, gestated the pregnancy for them, and then gave the baby back to them when he was born.
So the analogy of bun in the oven, they made the bun, you were the oven.
Exactly. Yep, exactly.
So if you have two women and they create embryos, they could technically get the eggs from one and the other could carry.
Yes.
But for you, they decided that they would get somebody else to carry, correct?
So it's really rare for a lesbian couple to need a gestational surrogate because 9 times out of 10, one of the women can carry. In my particular situation with the women that I carried for, one had a thyroid condition which prevented her from ever being pregnant, and the other had a kidney transplant in her 20s and could never carry. So I just happened to find maybe the one lesbian couple at the time in the country that needed a gestational surrogate. But yeah, medically, neither of them could carry.
So they made the embryo, they then transferred it into you and you got pregnant. Did it happen first go?
No, it happened. So the first transfer was unsuccessful. And we waited about 6 months in between transfers because they, at that time, didn't have any more embryos left after the first try. And so they both went through IVF at the same time to both try and get as many eggs as they could for the second try. And between the two of them, I think they did 2 rounds each. So 4 rounds of IVF total, and only got 3, I think, embryos out of that.
So they've created embryos, you've had a failed transfer. How, you're offering this gift, you're sitting there going, I've had an uncomplicated pregnancy, I've had an amazing pregnancy, I'm amazing, it's fantastic. And then it doesn't work.
Yeah.
How do you feel? Because how do you feel?
Yeah. This is really common with surrogates. You feel guilty. You feel like your body didn't do what it has done in the past for you. And you feel like, why couldn't it do it for these people? What's different? And obviously everything's different, right? The way I got pregnant with my daughter was through IUI, which is intrauterine insemination. They just put the semen sample right up into my uterus and then it naturally gestates or naturally fertilizes. Sorry.
The turkey-based method.
The turkey bait, thank you. In the doctor's office, turkey baster. But everything's obviously different, but the way you feel as a surrogate is, I let these people down. They've already been through so much. They've been through so much heartache, so much struggle. They're going through so much to get to the point of this surrogacy. And now I'm supposed to be the bearer of good news. I'm supposed to be their final chance, and I've just failed. And the reality is, could happen to anybody, and it does happen quite often, actually, that it doesn't work the first time.
That must be quite a cross to bear, because you're sitting there going, yeah. Oh. For them, obviously, it's devastating, but for you, and this is one of those things that really, I take my hat off to anybody who wants to be a surrogate, because you are laying it out on the line. You're like, I'm putting everything I can into this, and it doesn't work. That's got to be a huge knock. How do you pick yourself up to go, okay, let's do it again?
Yeah. So this is where it comes into play, where women who are interested in being surrogates, you always hear you have to have a strong support network before you can be approved to be a surrogate. This is one of the reasons why. It's moments like that where you have a failed transfer and now you're looking at potentially months of delay and starting over and doing all the shots all over again, which in and of themselves are horrible. In order to qualify, you have to have a very strong support network, whether that's a spouse, partner, family members, friends, coworkers, whatever your tribe is, it needs to be solid and strong before you start surrogacy, because moments like this are going to happen. Failed transfer, you're going to need encouragement, support, logistical support. In my case, it was my ex-wife at the time, my mom, and my close friends who were keeping me encouraged and keeping me steady on the path of moving forward.
Yeah, when I look back at our surrogate, she was a single mom of two. I don't think she had that greater support network around her. If I look back, if I'm brutally honest, I don't think she did. And I remember one of the things that happened was, so the children were born. She had a C-section. We all stayed. We all stayed in the hospital for 4 days with her. Then we got her a nurse who is so sweet. She follows this podcast and she's going to love her. Sarah, we love you. Anyway, so she then we hired a nurse to go to the surrogate's house, Angela's house, to look after her because she had a C-section, just to really look after her.
Yeah.
And then really interestingly, what I didn't know was, so 2 weeks later, she then came to the house where we were staying and spent a week with us. And she told us that during the pregnancy, her mother had died.
Oh my gosh.
But that she didn't tell anybody. She kept it to herself because she wanted this positive environment around the twins and all. And I remember standing there and I was just like, how did you not deal with that, process that? How? That's huge. Like, to not have that emotional support. Obviously, it wasn't to do with the twins, but that was in her life. Because one of the questions I want to ask you is actually, and this is a great segue into that, is how do you live your life as you would normally, knowing that you're pregnant with a child for somebody else? What do you do? How does that work?
Sure. So one of the things that came to mind while you were talking about your surrogate and her mom passing away is the evolution of mental health and surrogacy has been tremendous in the last decade that I've been in the industry as a professional, and it's for the better. When your surrogate was pregnant, because our kids are almost the same age, when I was pregnant as a surrogate, it's been like 11 years now since I was pregnant as a surrogate, mental health was only involved in the surrogacy process in the beginning for psychological evaluations, and that was it. Mental health now in surrogacy is integrated into the process for surrogates and parents. Surrogates, if they're working with a reputable agency who's doing the right things by them, they are giving them access to mental health support throughout their journey and after, and making sure that a mental health therapist can be available if there's something like a death in the family or something, major complications with the pregnancy, or just anything in life going on that's stressful for the surrogate. So that now I think is a huge difference that's for the better. To answer your question about how do you go about your life being pregnant for someone else, I can speak for myself only, which is that it wasn't that much different, except there's this little twist, which is I was in a lesbian marriage, and obviously if I was pregnant, there would have had to have been a lot of effort made to get pregnant. If I was trying to have another child, it wouldn't have just happened. So our close friends, like that we saw every day, were like, okay, wait, what? And so I did have to explain it a lot, but just everyday things like grocery store, like you'll hear this a lot from surrogates. Like you go to the grocery store and you have, at the time I had my toddler with me. She was 2, I think, at the time. And you'll hear like the cashier say, oh my gosh, you're going to be a big sister. And we told our daughter everything. She knew the intended moms, and she'd say, no, that's the mommy's baby. That's not my baby. And
No,
she
we're
would tell
giving
them,
this one away.
we're giving this one to somebody else. Yeah, exactly. And they'd be like, oh, okay, that's just something crazy this toddler's saying. But you did have to explain it. And so I would have to explain like a double layer of weirdness to people. I'm not only carrying someone else's baby, but I'm carrying a baby for 2 other moms. There's no dad. And they're like, okay, whatever, lady.
That has to be for a lot of surrogates. Like, I know that historically military wives have been big on the surrogacy scene. Like, their husbands are deployed and they get pregnant. I can see the cogs turning of, oh, really?
Yeah.
He's away and you're like out there. I'm like, what's he gonna say when you come
Right.
home? Like,
Yep, exactly. There's definitely, it's funny, like you pick and choose in those moments who you really want to explain things to, but you definitely do get the comments. And for me, I just thought they were funny. And if people were genuinely interested in understanding it, I loved explaining it because they were always so fascinated. And still to this day, when I tell people what I do, they're like, wait, how does that work? I have so many questions and I love answering them.
and I see this happening all the time. But what's really interesting is I've seen my dad and my mum and my godparents explaining to their friends.
Yes.
Now, that's 80-year-olds who
Right.
their minds get blown at the most easy things. But
Right.
then all of a sudden, my dad is explaining how
Mhm.
surrogacy works. I get so proud when I'm like literally listening to my mum explaining it to her super Catholic friends, or my dad explaining to his very English.
Right.
It's that explanation is
Yes.
very cool, and we have to do it every day. I feel like I come out every single day. I'm
Oh
like,
my gosh.
these are
Yes.
my children. This is my ex-husband. This is
Yes.
my boyfriend. They're like, huh?
Oh, yes. I know. Same.
What?
Yes. 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 And we can talk more about that. But yes, I totally get that. And I see that when you talk about your parents and people explaining it to other people, I see that in my daughter. And for her, it's just so normal. Yeah, I have lesbian moms. Yeah, I was born from a sperm donor. And yeah, my mom carried a baby that wasn't ours for two other moms. This is just how life is. And to see her explaining it to other people, it's like that's her normal. And I love that.
And I love that. They're worldly, they're wise, they get it. They're like, their minds are so open to different shapes and forms of family.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
that's amazing. So coming back to your pregnancy, because there are certain questions that I think maybe
Yeah.
people never ask,
Yeah.
but I'm going to.
I hope
Right?
so. I love it.
Did you ever feel, I want to keep this baby? I'm going to not hand it over. This, I've carried it. I felt it move. It's in me. This is mine. Did you ever feel that?
Sure. That is the number one question. Actually, we've done a couple episodes on my podcast about things that surrogates hear, and that is the number one question. And as a surrogacy agency owner for years, I heard that a lot from parents. What if my surrogate wants to keep the baby? And I always used to say to them, actually, what you should be more concerned about is that she is worried that you won't come pick up your baby. She's asking the same exact question. What if these parents don't want to come get their child? Both sides don't realize that each of them are concerned about the same thing. I'll speak from my experience. Absolutely not. There was never 1 second, 1 moment where I ever thought, this is my baby, or I'm so connected to this baby in a way that makes me want to keep it. And there's lots of reasons for that, right? So I knew I was done forming my family for myself before I ever became a surrogate. The other main reason is, despite the fact that he's not genetically related to me at all, there's no genetic tie, he's also legally not my child. But the relationship that meant the most to me, and the reason I was in it and was doing this, was the relationship I had with the moms. I have, and to this day, still have a very close friendship with them. And I wanted more than anything else for them to experience the joy of being moms like I had experienced it. I was so excited for them. It was almost like somebody else was pregnant with their baby. It was like, I'm so excited to see you finally have a baby. I'm so excited to be in on your conversations about your baby shower and all the things you're doing to prepare for him. I was like, and still am, like an aunt to the child, like they're a nephew. And I'm so excited for this new member of this weirdly extended family that we're forming to come into the world and be with his moms.
Yeah, it's that, because that's something that there are many things that realistically I struggle with from a mental capacity. Like from an emotional capacity, I think there are different things, and I get that, and I think it's amazing. But when I try to conceptualize that, I'm like, you're carrying a baby, and you're literally just going, here you go, do.
Yeah.
That, for me, and I've worked in this for many years, I still think I struggle. I can't comprehend how our surrogate, amazing woman, did that for us. Like, it just blows my mind. Like, I'm like, you carried Sandra and Lulu, you had a C-section, you had did all of this for me.
Yeah, I know, right? I can see how it would be difficult. And I don't want to discount one particular thing that I think people misunderstand. It's not because I had a C-section too, and I had a toddler at home, and there's a lot of factors involved in giving birth, especially if it's via C-section and a longer recovery. But I don't want to misconstrue this point. There is a big difference between the hormones and the natural process of recovering from birth and all the things your body goes through hormonally after giving birth that are natural and that can cause you to feel emotional and sad and weepy and put you in this space of, I just don't feel like myself, right? That's a normal postpartum period. And sometimes that can also be baby blues or sadness that comes after having a baby. I had that. A lot of surrogates have that. That is natural. That is very different than miss the baby. I want to keep the baby. I wish I had kept it. I feel connected to it in a parental way. Those things are totally different.
For me.
Yeah, I know, right? I can see how it would be difficult. And I don't want to discount one particular thing that I think people misunderstand. It's not because I had a C-section too, and I had a toddler at home, and there's a lot of factors involved in giving birth, especially if it's via C-section and a longer recovery. But I don't want to misconstrue this point. There is a big difference between the hormones and the natural process of recovering from birth and all the things your body goes through hormonally after giving birth that are natural and that can cause you to feel emotional and sad and weepy and put you in this space of, oh, I just don't feel like myself, right? That's a normal postpartum period. And sometimes that can also be baby blues or sadness that comes after having a baby. I had that. A lot of surrogates have that. That is natural. That is very different than miss the baby. I want to keep the baby. I wish I had kept it. I feel connected to it in a parental way. Those things are totally different. And I think people get that mixed up.
Yeah, I do. Now you're delineating the two. I'm like, actually, yeah, I'm mixing those up, thinking, why didn't she ever think that these were her children versus major surgery and trying to recover from that?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a good period of probably 3 weeks after I delivered as a surrogate where I was crying every day. My body was going through production of milk, which I had not produced milk with my daughter. So I was producing all this milk and pumping it, and pumping in and of itself is a process that causes hormonal shifts. And so I was a mess for 3 weeks. And I think that's pretty common across the postpartum spectrum, whether you're a surrogate or not. And then people get concerned. Even my mom said, oh my gosh, are you missing the baby? Are you okay? And I'm like, Mom, it has nothing to do with that. I don't miss him. You know who I miss? I miss the moms. I miss the everyday relationship that we had of texting. They're now busy with their newborn. They now have a life to live and parents to be. Now I'm not in the center of their universe, and I miss that friendship, daily interaction.
Oh my God, you're not their queen bee. Once you're pregnant, you're their everything. And then all of a sudden they have their baby and they're like, oh, thank you so much. We're focused here. Doesn't mean they appreciate you any less. No. And I think this is one of the things that I, to this day, can't thank our surrogate enough. She gave me something that nobody else could give me. And it just, that blows my, again, I've said blows my mind multiple times.
Yeah.
But it's just like, she's that human being that did that. I'm like, wow, that's amazing.
But once your babies were here, that was your focus, right? Yeah. That was where your attention and your energy went. And it's just like if you have a best friend and you guys spend every day together and you talk every day and you're texting every day, and then your best friend has a baby, they're going to be a little preoccupied, right? That's the dynamic that a lot of surrogates struggle with when they have a close relationship with their intended parents like I did. It's, oh, they now have something else on their mind that's not me or not the pregnancy. They now have the baby. So that's where I think a lot of people misunderstand. Like, I was a mess postpartum and hormonally, but not emotionally.
So what's my excuse? I'm a mess every day.
I can't answer that for you. I'm sorry.
So you pumped milk. We just did a whole podcast on pumping versus formula. How does that feel? And did you try your milk?
Good question. No, but my daughter wanted to, and so I let her. I'm like, here, you can taste some of it. She was like almost 3 at the time. No, I didn't. I never had the desire to, but what does pumping feel like? I personally didn't love pumping. It's a 24-hour job, like, because if you're producing a lot of milk, it's like a every couple of hour thing. You have to pump the milk because it just keeps coming in and it will just start to leak out, and it gets very painful and uncomfortable if you don't pump it out. So it doesn't matter if you need to sleep 8 hours a night. Too bad. Every 2 hours you're getting up and you're sitting up in bed with your eyes closed and you're pumping. And then you can go back to sleep. It's like having a newborn, right?
I was like, again, like I've never pumped milk, but doesn't it feel like just feel like you're a cow in a milking machine?
I don't know what that feels like, but yeah, I would say it's probably pretty similar. You know what I remember more than the physical feeling of pumping, which was uncomfortable for me, was the hormonal feeling. Like when you start to pump, there's some sort of, I don't know, I'm not a scientist or a doctor. I know that there are some different hormones and different things that are chemicals that are happening in your body. And I remember the feeling of, first of all, I couldn't get enough water. I was feeling so dehydrated because you're releasing all of this liquid, right? And so your body needs to replenish. So I felt super dehydrated. And I just remember this hormonal shift every time I would release the milk and pump it that felt, I don't know, weird. It was just a weird feeling. And I don't know if there are other women who could probably say it better than me, but I just remember feeling, this shift of hormones that are happening when I'm doing this. It was weird. Yeah, it was not a fun time, but it was important for him while he was there locally to have that milk to get all of his immunity so that they could travel back home safely and have as much immunity as possible.
Amazing. And do you still, you've said you're great friends with the mum still. Do you see him? What's his relationship to your daughter? Like, how does that work?
Yes. So we have stayed close. So strangely enough, the 2 moms ended up getting divorced as well shortly after he was born.
I think we need to do a podcast on divorced parents.
Oh,
What do you think?
Yes, gay divorce. There's gay marriage and there's gay divorce, as we well know. So they separated and I stayed closer to one mom than the other. So she and I talk a lot. We text all the time. She sends me pictures all the time. On average, we see each other about once a year. When I see him, he knows exactly who I am. I send him birthday presents every year. And he always says to me, he's going to be 10, actually, in about a month and a half. He'll be 10. And he says to me, I was in your belly and I kicked you a lot, didn't I? I'm like, yes, you did. But I think he, just like my daughter, like it's his normal, right? He has 2 moms. He was born from a surrogate and a sperm donor, and that's just his normal. Like it's not unusual to him. It's his life.
But again, as you said it earlier, with surrogates finding their tribe, like it's like he inadvertently has found his tribe because his parents are the same as you and your family, right? That's a beautiful thing. I think one of the wonderful things about this entire surrogacy world and IVF world is we find people like us that have been through what we've been through. And I think for the good and the bad, like the tough and the not so tough and the fun and the amazing. And I think that just makes us the people we are. Yeah. But I want to say thank you so much. I'm going to get you back on another podcast. We will talk about gay divorce, but I'm going to end on a happy note. This was amazing. You are amazing. I think the job that you do with Surrogacy Mentor is fantastic. Like you are just helping so many different people. So on their behalf, thank you. On the intended parents' behalf as well, thank you. You're amazing. And we'll talk very soon.
Thank you. Nice to see you.